There's a clear distinction between the political parties as it relates to the dignity of life itself. The other party, throughout its national convention, spent most of its time celebrating, not just acknowledging a right, but actually celebrating and elevating, far beyond the right of an abortion, but the responsibility that they believe all of us as taxpayers have to pay for it, even when it violates the most fundamental element of our conscience. I've never been so shocked in my life to see speaker after speaker go to the podium in Charlotte at the Democratic National Convention and all but give a rallying cry that the single most important thing to them in all of America was not a stable economy, was not a secure border. It was not that we had peace within our country and that we were protected from enemies from around the world. It was not that we stopped terrorism. It was not that we had an education system that gave our kids the opportunity to become independent and self-sufficient. It was not that we would have a food supply system that would allow us to feed ourselves and not be dependent upon some foreign country to feed us. It was not that we would have our own energy resources where we could take care of ourselves and not be held slaves to some Middle Eastern tyrant who takes our money by the wads and then turns around and spends it to use against us, to murder us and kill us in the name of a perverted faith. No, that wasn't what was the most important issue. The most important issue was, I want to be able to take the life of my baby and I want someone else to pay for it. And as I heard that, I thought, maybe I live on a different planet. Because I cannot imagine that a political party would believe that the single most important issue facing this country is to take the life of yet even more than the 55 million babies that we've already taken the life of. And this is why this is not an issue that needs to be on the back burner. Oh, I'm not saying it's the primary point of every speech we make politically. I'm not saying that it's going to be the entire agenda. Sure, we have to manage the whole processes. When I was a governor for 10.5 years, yes, I focused on education and health care and road building and all the things that are a part of governing a population of people. But at the same time, I never did, nor will I ever waver on every opportunity that God gives me breath to take to save the lives of those who are innocent, who have committed no crime, who have yet to even have a chance for their potential. And those of you in this room who would come out on a Saturday afternoon and would give your attention and your efforts to celebrating life, you truly are the heart and hope of not just our Republican Party, but I believe of the United States of America. Billy Graham's wife, back in 1975, made a statement that I fear may be more prophetic than we ever could hope to hear. Ruth Bell Graham, I should say, in 1975 made the statement, she said, that if God Almighty does not bring judgment on the United States of America for the sins against His holy cause, and she was referencing issues like our immoral behavior as it relates to children. She said, if God doesn't bring His fiery judgment upon America, then He will have to apologize to Sodom and Gomorrah. And I wonder, how long can we last? Moreover, how long should we last if we sacrifice our own children on the altars of our selfishness? This is why this issue cannot be moved off our platform. And if it is, then I'll meet you somewhere outside the tent and we'll build a new one. But we will not silence our voices for life. understand I'm traveling a lot these days. For one thing, I have to go to New York every week to do the show for Fox. A lot of travel in between. And by the way, I don't live in New York, and I don't plan to. And when people ask me, hey, aren't you going to move up there? I say, when Michael Bloomberg, the mayor, will let me duck hunt in Central Park, I'll think about it. Which is a nice way of saying it ain't never going to happen. But Janet and I had to figure out what to do with some of our amassed frequent flyer miles. So Christmas afternoon, after our kids and grandkids started scattering to see the other side of the family, we flew to Europe and we went to see the beaches of Normandy, where incredible, brave, and courageous Americans shed their blood to stop a war. And it was an incredible experience. And then we went to Krakow, Poland. And we toured Schindler's factory in Krakow. And then we drove just a few miles, about 30 miles from Krakow. And we visited the Nazi camps of Auschwitz and Birkenau. I've been many places where I was deeply moved. But the sobering reality of standing in Auschwitz, in the very room where more than 1 million human beings had been marched into that room and murdered, was something I'll never, ever forget. And I stood there for a moment, and it occurred to me that I stood in the very place where over 1 million fellow human beings were murdered for no particular purpose other than they were in someone's way and represented an inconvenience to the Nazis and were the object of their hate and their scorn. And in their case, because they happened to be Jewish. It's inconceivable to me that in a nation that at the time was the most scientifically advanced nation on earth, as was Germany, with some of the best educated people in the world, with some of the finest, greatest, and most learned theologians in the history of Christianity in that country, with people who were not third world. These were highly educated, sophisticated individuals who allowed themselves to be duped into believing that it was okay to murder 11 million people, 6 million of whom were Jews, some of whom were disabled, and others were just in the way and happened to like the people who were getting murdered. And they were marched to their deaths. And many people have asked, well, why didn't they resist? I mean, there was 1,000 Jews to 1 Nazi. Why didn't they fight? 2 reasons. One, because they never could be convinced that something so horrible could actually happen to them. And the second thing was that the Nazis had taken away any capacity they had to defend themselves because only the government owned any of the weapons that would have been used to fight off those incredible, vicious Nazis who were going to kill them. Is there a lesson? Yes, there is. Since 1973, not 6 million, not 11, 55 million babies have been taken to their deaths. In a nation that is the most economically advanced, scientifically developed, educationally superior, a true superpower. And I ask you, not will God let us continue to stand as a nation if we continue to do this to the unborn. No, the real question is, should God let us stand?